Hello, our friend Mr. Hunter Avalone made a video called "What is the Purpose of My Channel?" in which he said that the reason for his channel's existence is to share his political opinions. However, about halfway into the video, Hunter explained that the basis of his political views is data, studies, and general academic authority, which is something he said in other videos since exiting the right. Besides Hunter, many people on BreadTube will stress the importance of science, data, and studies to get political truths. I am very much of the opinion that this sentiment is driving Hunter's leftism. I think that a big part of the reason Hunter stopped being a conservative was because he fell for this idea that the truth was just what data and academia said. Although this method of finding truth may make sense at first, there are certain problems that are hidden inside this way of thinking, and I want to use Hunter's video as an opportunity to point these problems out. So let's hear what our friend has to say, and then I shall respond.
I really want to take all of you on that similar kind of journey. I want people to think freely. I want people to stop being afraid of supporting certain positions that might be good for America because that's a liberal position or that's a conservative position. I want to know if certain policy positions are actually rooted on factual information or not. It's important to remember that empirical evidence is always better than a gut feeling. You would be amazed at how many people, especially on the far right, act like because I have a gut feeling and just this common sense, that makes me a macho man and I don't need to listen to some liberal study. Again, using labels to ignore factual information that's inconvenient to your worldview. I want people to get away from that, and I want people to actually read studies and read data and then form opinions on those issues.
So why did I have an issue with this line of reasoning? Shouldn't we base our understanding of the world on the data and academic research? Well, not so fast. The first problem with this video is that sovereignty often distorts what academia produces by blocking academic ideas and material that is an attack on sovereignty and rewarding academic ideas and material that conforms to sovereignty. If you have a sovereign, and we do because all governments have at least one, then the main incentive of the sovereign is to protect his or her sovereignty even at the expense of truth. This means that sovereignty will want to fight against any idea, information, or movement which attacks it. And if the objective truth starts attacking sovereignty, then sovereignty will be more than happy to fight against the objective truth. Think about North Korea. In North Korea, there is one sovereign, and his main goal is to remain a sovereign. If the sovereign of North Korea wants to keep his sovereignty, then why on earth would he tolerate ideas, information, and movements that paint him in a bad light? He would not. And so the incentive of sovereignty dictates that any dissident against sovereignty must be crushed. If a historian in North Korea publishes anything that makes sovereignty look bad, regardless of the truth of the claims, he can expect to not live very long. I'm not saying this is how things should be, but this is the nature of power. Now, Hunter Avalone might fall into the trap of thinking that because the US does not have a dictator, this does not apply to the US. But he would be mistaken. The nature of sovereignty does not change because you have a republic and a constitution. People have sovereignty and they want to keep it. and they will crush anyone who attacks their sovereignty, even at the expense of truth. It is for this reason that any academic who attacks sovereignty can expect the cancel culture mob to come for them, or be fired from any mainstream position in academia. Our media, universities, corporations, and political elites in general are socially progressive. If you think otherwise, then name one major firm that is not going woke, or at the very least playing ball with the ones that are. This means that academia will only say what social progressives want to hear, and that is not always telling the whole truth. With this in mind, we have to understand that science and data are not enough. There needs to be critical thinking that goes along with it. You can't just blindly believe what the authority figures in your society are telling you. If you do, then you are no better than people in North Korea that think Kim Jong-un is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You need critical thinking. It is not good enough to have data and studies from Harvard. You have to use your reason to evaluate the authenticity of the data and studies, and be willing to reject the science if it does not make logical sense. If you don't question authority, you will end up thinking all kinds of crazy stuff that power wants you to think. Look at North Korea. However, there is a much bigger problem with this type of thinking that I should highlight. We are talking about politics, and let me emphasize that. We are talking about politics, and political truth is different from truths about science or history or other areas of life. Politics is fundamentally about ethics. Questions about abortion, sex issues, immigration, and others have more to do with ethics than anything empirical. Science and data can give you truths about what is, but only what is. Science and data can never tell you what should be. Take, for example, immigration. Data can tell us about the economic effects of immigration, the likelihood they will assimilate, and other things. An economist might produce hundreds of studies showing that immigrants create jobs and boost GDP. However, none of that on its own can tell us if we should or should not take in immigrants, because the question is a question of what we should do and not what is. Politics is not about what is, it is about what should be. And in order to find out what should be, you need ethics. There is nothing in the empirical world that can tell you what should be on its own. You can't do a study on immigration to find out the rightness or wrongness of taking in immigrants. The most you can find out from studies on immigration is how things are, not how things should be. Hunter may be able to debate right-wing people on immigration by pointing to some data showing immigration creates jobs and grows the GDP. But that only works if both sides agree that creating jobs and growing the GDP is a good we need to aim for. If someone like Keith Woods or Morgott's Review comes along and disagrees with Hunter Avallone that the growth of the economy is the good we should aim for, and asserts that there are higher goods that are more important than economics, then what happens? Hunter Avallone can't talk about the economic data anymore because his disagreement with Keith Woods or Morgott's Review is about ethics and not data. The disagreement is about the fundamental question of the good. This is something that the data cannot tell us. Only philosophy can tell us about things like good or evil. You can't put good or evil under a microscope or on a spreadsheet. You can only philosophize about these concepts. As a result of political questions being ethical questions, and ethics being a non-empirical or data-driven property, our friend Hunter Avallone is missing a lot of what is needed to answer questions about politics because of his over-reliance on data. What Hunter Avallone needs to do is leave the domain of data and science and explore the domain of ethics. Because politics is not about empirical data. It's about morality, or what should be. But anyway, this is going to have to do it for this video. Sorry this took so long to make. Midterms got in the way. If you like this video, then subscribe, like, comment, and hit the bell. Also follow me on BitChute, Odyssey, and Telegram so that you know where to find me on alternative platforms. Thank you for listening.